Nintendo has many games and projects we know and love, but it's inevitable that some may go missing, becoming lost media. And almost all of these forgotten and inaccessible pieces of media appear on this absolutely massive iceberg chart. If you've never heard of an iceberg chart, the idea is simple. The top layers are things most people know, and the deeper you go, the topics get more strange, obscure, and even disturbing. This iceberg chart contains 10 whole layers of Nintendo lost media, and by the end, things get pretty crazy, so stay tuned for that. Alright, I'll waste no more time. This is the Nintendo Lost Media Iceberg Explained. Super Mario 128. Super Mario 128 was the name of a tech demo first shown off at the second-to-last Nintendo Space World presentation in 2000. This was a potential game for the Nintendo GameCube and Wii. The tech demo featured 128 Marios in the game, who could manipulate the terrain by bringing the structure up and down, and they could even change the board into a pizza pie. The tech demo was intended to test the large amount of entities that the GameCube could handle at once, something that was deemed impossible for the Nintendo 64. In 2005, Reggie Fils-Aimé said that Super Mario 128 would make an appearance at that year's E3 presentation, however, it did not. That same year, Miyamoto gave us some information on the game, saying that Mario would be in a game with a new character by his side, and it would not be on the GameCube, but rather the Nintendo Wii. In 2006, Miyamoto confirmed that Super Mario 128 was cancelled, but many elements of the demo were used in Metroid Prime, Super Mario Galaxy, and The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Though it's unknown if Super Mario 128 was actually fully developed as a game, the original tech demo hasn't resurfaced or been leaked to the internet, and all that remains of the tech demo are some video recordings and screenshots from the demo at Space World 2000. Wii Startup Disc. The Wii Startup Disc was a disc containing a firmware upgrade for the Nintendo Wii, seemingly intended to be shipped with the very first retail Wii units. We know this because the box of the launch day Wiis state that a startup disc was included in the package, while Wii Sports isn't listed as a part of the bundle. But as you may remember, Wii Sports was included with launch day Wiis, so what happened to the startup disc? While very few Wii units that required the disc actually ended up being shipped to customers, a substantially higher amount were shipped to retailers to be used for kiosk demos. Reports have been made of sightings of the screen on store kiosks in late 2006, and employees at stores like GameStop around that time have also reported seeing it. While the Wii Startup Disc error message and menu installation are not lost and have been thoroughly documented by this point in 2025, the disc itself is lost. The NAND dump of a console needing a startup disc was dumped by the infamous Wii hacker Ben Bushing in 2010. The NAND binary was also dumped by Bushing before his passing, which can be run on Dolphin emulator, letting us finally see what this disc contained. Slamfest 99. Slamfest 99, otherwise known as Super Smash Bros. Live, was an official promotion event for the North American release of Super Smash Bros. On the N64. It was held at the MGM Grand Adventures theme park in Las Vegas, Nevada on April 24, 1999. The event basically featured a real-life stage wrestling match involving 4 costume Super Smash Bros. Characters performing in front of a live audience. The 17-minute-long fight was live-streamed on the web via Real Player G2 by the web broadcasting company Media On Demand's InternetBroadcast.com service. While a rebroadcast of the match was hosted on the event's official website for several months following its conclusion, no video footage of Slamfest 99 is currently known to exist. The official broadcast, as well as any secondhand video recordings, remain lost. Many photos from the event exist, as well as portions of news articles that prove its existence, but no footage of it remains on the internet. However, there are these Super Smash Bros. TV commercials which use the same characters seen at Slamfest 99. The search for this event has been ongoing for almost half a decade now, starting to gain traction in mid-2020 after a tweet from the Super Mario Bros. Twitter account. Mean Girls DS. Mean Girls DS is a video game made for the Nintendo DS, intended as a tie-in for the 2004 film of the same name. The game was published by 505 Games and was set to be released in Europe on September 11, 2009. A United States release was scheduled for April 20, 2010, but both were cancelled at the last minute. Little is known about the gameplay, though the plot is presumably similar to the movie, in that the player acts as a new student of a high school. A Kotaku article described the game as being some kind of Puzzle Quest ripoff, which would make it similar to its PC counterpart, Mean Girls High School Showdown. The game was noteworthy for not including Lindsay Lohan in the cover, despite her major role as Katie in the film. Apparently, the official explanation for this is that it was due to a monetary dispute, though many speculate that the actual reason was because of the actress's poor reputation at the time. On May 26, 2021, YouTuber Raymona revealed via Twitter that she had come into possession of a ROM of the game and announced a forthcoming documentary video detailing how she obtained it. She would then go on to release a full playthrough of the Mean Girls DS game onto her channel, proving the suspicion that the game was nothing but a buggy and lazily put together minigame collection. Dragon King: The Fighting Game. The iconic crossover fighting game Super Smash Bros. Originally began development without any ties to established Nintendo franchises under the title Kakuto Gimu Ryo, which translates to Dragon King: The Fighting Game. Very little is known about the game, and the only pieces of evidence that proves it even exists are in the form of 3 screenshots that were released in a Iwata Asks interview, as well as a little video clip being featured in a documentary by series director Masahiro Sakurai. For over a decade, these screenshots were the only known piece of evidence available to the public, until October 20th, 2022, when Masahiro Sakurai revealed gameplay footage for the very first time in his retrospect on the first game on his YouTube channel. Based on the little footage and screenshots we have, the game would have played very similarly to Super Smash Bros. It is also speculated that the nameless fighter in the game became Captain Falcon in Super Smash Bros., as the Dragon King character appears to use some of the Falcon's attacks and shares a similar looking model and pose. Grand Theft Auto 64. Grand Theft Auto 64 is a cancelled Nintendo 64 port of the original GTA for the PlayStation. It reportedly would have featured enhanced graphics, new levels, and more exclusive content, but for unknown reasons, the port was cancelled before being publicly revealed. It was talked about during E3 1999, where it was 50% complete, but no footage was ever released of it. For a long time, it was thought that the port didn't even exist at all, until Lucci on Assembler Games posted a scan of the Spanish N64 magazine that featured screenshots of the cancelled game. This is all we have proving this game's existence. Koopa tracks down Daisy's mother, Luigi meets Daisy at the cafe, the Mario Bros prepare for their date, Mario interacts with a group of prostitutes, yes, that was gonna be in the movie, Mario plays the saxophone, Mario and Luigi pick up Daisy from the dig site, extended Bella Napoli scene, Koopa kills his campaign advisor, Mario and Luigi argue in their cell, police car chase extended, the ventilation shaft extended, Mario evades Goombas in Koopa Tower, and extended celebration scene. Luigi's Mansion 2001 beta build. Luigi's Mansion was a launch title for the Nintendo GameCube, both developed and published by Nintendo. The game was initially revealed as a tech demo during Nintendo Space World in 2000. There's a couple noticeable differences between this early version and the version that was released to the public. Most changes were either edits to the HUD and menus, however, the physical disc was different too, and there were several ghosts that didn't make it to the final release of the game. A playable build of this version of the game has never surfaced, and all that exists of this version is a few screenshots and brief footage of the game. Metroid Dread. Metroid Dread is an action-adventure game for the Nintendo Switch, released on October 8, 2021. It's famous for going through what's called development hell, having been originally developed for the Nintendo DS, and been teased and rumored about numerous times over the span of 16 years. This early version of the game has never been publicly shown off, but some things can be pieced together from the bits of info and insider testimony that exist. It's really interesting, actually. So, the game was first conceptualized for the Nintendo DS around 2005. It would have been a 2D side-scroller game and continued directly after the events of Metroid Fusion, just like the final game. The development team's main idea for the game was to instill dread in the player by having them constantly be chased by an unstoppable enemy, which was a follow-up to Metroid Fusion's SAX. However, they wanted to go further with the concept. Later, an E3 2005 document from Nintendo got leaked, showing off some of the upcoming DS titles, including Metroid Dread. Gaming magazines and websites reported on this, setting off a wildfire of speculation and hype. However, Metroid Dread was a no-show at the event. In 2006, the game was officially announced in the official Nintendo magazine, given a release date of November that same year. As the issues progressed, this release date turned into a to be confirmed, and it urged readers to stay tuned for E3 for more info. Nothing ever came of this. In 2007, attention was brought to a potential Easter egg in Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. The player can scan a terminal in the Metroid processing room, which will give them logs referencing Metroid Project Dread and how it was a failure. In 2010, IGN's Craig Harris said in a podcast that he had seen a complete script for Metroid Dread, and that Nintendo could use it anytime they wanted. After the 2021 announcement of Metroid Dread for the Nintendo Switch, Craig Harris was asked on Twitter if he remembered anything from this script. His response is as follows: 15 years is a long time to retain something that you literally read for 10 seconds. I don't remember anything but the words Metroid Dread, honestly. Mario Takes America. In 1992, Toronto-based developer Sekai pitched a CDI game featuring Mario to Philips, who were impressed and actually funded the game. It was meant to be an educational game featuring Mario visiting various locations in the United States, hence the name Mario Takes America. In this game, the premise is that Mario arrived in New York so he could become a star in a feature film. It was going to use full motion video footage, some of which was already recorded, featuring shots taken from helicopters, cars, and speedboats. It used 2D sprites and animation, inspired by the recent Mario television cartoons. When the video footage was finished, it eventually taxed the CDI's memory greatly, and performance was really poor. Philips ended up being unimpressed with the progress the developers were making and cut funding. Sekai later cancelled development and went bankrupt. Seizure-inducing English-dubbed Pokémon anime episode. On December 16, 1997, Deno Sensei Porygon, the 38th episode of Season 1 of the Pokémon anime, aired in Japan. The episode centered around Ash and his friends going inside of an out-of-order Pokéball transmitting device at a local Pokémon Center to determine the cause of its malfunctioning. The episode is infamous for a particular scene about halfway through the episode. As the group is combating with Team Rocket, an antivirus program is sent into the device by Nurse Joy to combat what she believed to be a computer virus. When Pikachu attacks the program with Thunderbolt, it causes a huge explosion that takes up most of the screen and flashes red and blue very quickly. The scene caused over 10,000 viewers to experience blurred vision, nausea, headaches, and dizziness in minor cases, as well as convulsions, loss of consciousness, blindness, and seizures in more severe cases. Japan's Fire Defense Agency reported that 685 children ended up being sent to the hospital by ambulances due to their seizures. While most of these children recovered during the trip, more than 150 of them had to stay in the hospital, with 2 having to stay for over 2 weeks. The show went on a 4-month hiatus, and the episode was banned from re-airing anywhere. While the original Japanese dub of this episode has been unofficially released online, an English dub of the episode has not surfaced at all. The existence of the dub has been long questioned, with no consolidated proof of it ever existing, and even actors who worked on the dub itself sharing conflicting information. Ash's English voice actor Veronica Taylor claimed that she never dubbed this episode in English. However, Brock and James's English voice actor Eric Stewart claimed that the episode was fully dubbed in English and he had seen it. Miiverse. Miiverse refers to Nintendo's experimental social media platform made for the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U. I believe the reason why it's on this Iceberg chart is because a majority of the platform's posts have not been archived, meaning they are technically lost. People on the internet have created projects whose goal is to restore Miiverse and most of its posts. However, there's no possible way that every post could ever be archived.
Shitamachi Ninjo Gekijo. Shitamachi Ninjo Gekijo, known as Lily Frankie Theater in English, was an unusual virtual magazine that was broadcast exclusively through Nintendo's Satellaview service in Japan between 1995 and 1996. Created by comedian Lily Frankie, it came in 2 formats, a live-action version featuring Super Mario characters and a manga-style version starring Frankie himself. Unlike Nintendo's usual family-friendly tone, the series was filled with dark humor. Mario characters were depicted smoking, engaging in sexual conversations, getting sent to and then breaking out of prison, and a whole bunch of other stuff I shouldn't talk about on YouTube because then I won't make any money. In total, 98 episodes aired across both versions, making it one of the strangest projects ever tied to the Mario franchise. Because Satellaview broadcasts were temporary and required players to record them onto special memory packs, most of Shitamachi Ninja Gekijo has been lost. Of the 98 total episodes, only 8 live-action installments and 1 manga episode have been recovered, along with 1 stray panel from an unidentified broadcast. The rest are considered lost media with no confirmed archives. Yeah Yeah Beavis 1. Yeah Yeah Beavis 1 is a potentially non-existent video game that was first mentioned in the June 1989 listing for mail-order video game service Play It Again in an issue of Video Games and Computer Entertainment. Nothing further surfaced about Beavis after this time, and as such, it's unknown if the game was simply a bad translation, a placeholder, or even a game at all. The most commonly supported theory is that Yeah Yeah Beavis 1 is the hastily localized name adaptation of the NES and Famicom platformer Rai Rai Kyonshi's Baby Kyonshi no Amida Daiboken. This specific game was based on the 1980s horror comedy Taiwanese film series Hello Dracula, starring a little Chinese vampire boy. The Rai Rai sound is reminiscent of the yeah yeah part of the title, while the baby in the title could have been possibly rendered as Beavis. Rai Rai Kyonshis also happened to be released in 1989, the same year Yeah Yeah Beavis was slated to release. Silva Gunner's Lost Rips. Silva Gunner is a YouTube channel best known for uploading high-quality rips, which start off sounding like normal video game soundtrack uploads, but quickly transform into mashups, meme songs, or bizarre remixes in order to trick the viewers. Silva Gunner is essentially a long-running collaboration parody project that blends internet humor, music theory, inside jokes, and video game culture into one being. Naturally, many of these uploads got removed over time, whether it was by Nintendo themselves or an account manager. Only 4 of the once lost rips are still lost, those being Main Theme Summer Wii Shop channel, which disappeared for seemingly no reason, Because I Love You Alpha Mix Earthbound, which was shortly taken down after a request from the uploader, Lost in Thoughts All Alone Fire Emblem Fates, which was removed because of a copyright claim, and lastly, Final Level Mighty Switch Force, whose disappearance is completely unknown. Super Mario Spikers. Super Mario Spikers was a cancelled video game developed by Next Level Games. They are the same company known for creating Super Mario Strikers and Strikers Charged. Super Mario Spikers was intended to release on the Wii between 2006 and 2007. The project, initially dubbed Mario Volleyball, evolved into a more aggressive hybrid incorporating wrestling elements into the sports theme, ultimately ending in the name being Super Mario Spikers. Despite reaching a fairly advanced development stage, including concept art, animations, and stage designs, Nintendo rejected the project based on its level of violence, which clashed with their family-friendly code of honor. No footage or ROM of the prototype has surfaced online, and it's unknown if any archival copy remains within Nintendo or Next Level Games. Twitch Plays Pokémon. Twitch Plays Pokémon is an ongoing social experiment that is run by an anonymous Australian programmer on Twitch.tv. The stream has spawned a cult-like following since its beginning on February 12, 2014, with the highest viewership count being 120,000 at once and reaching a total of over 30 million. Despite its popularity, the first day and a half of the stream was not recorded by anyone. The recording of the stream did not start until 1 day, 11 hours, 25 minutes, and 46 seconds into the game after a commenter asked the streamer to archive it. Since Twitch had deleted most archived streams, it's very unlikely that significant footage from this period will ever be found. 4 videos and 24 screenshots of the 35 total lost hours of the stream have been recovered though. King Koopa's Cool Cartoons. King Koopa's Cool Cartoons was a Southern Californian exclusive live-action children's show produced by DIC Entertainment in association with Nintendo. It aired on KTTV from September 11th, 1989 to November 20th, 1989. On King Koopa's Cool Cartoons, it was basically like a bumper almost. Like Bowser would come on, drop a few one-liners or talk to the crowd, and then introduce some vintage public domain cartoon. Although 65 episodes were reportedly produced over a single season, no complete episode has ever surfaced. The show never received home media release and vanished quickly after its short run. The only fragments currently available were shared by a RetroJunk user in 2005, who claimed to have 2 recorded episodes but has since disappeared, and the footage remains unavailable. Some pieces, such as a brief intro sequence, have eventually emerged online thanks to archival efforts. The show would face backlash from parents for its menacing tone and questionable humor.
I know where you live, Arthur.
Virtual Boy Mario Land. When Nintendo released the Virtual Boy in 1995, they intended to release a fully fledged platformer starring Mario. A tech demo of Virtual Boy Mario Land, known initially as Mario Adventure, was shown off at Winter CES 1995, featuring the first level. Judging by some in-game artwork, Wario would have also been the main antagonist. The game was cancelled, probably due to the Virtual Boy's critical and commercial failure. The game has yet to be found, and it's unknown if Nintendo still has a copy. McDonald's eCrew Development Program. The McDonald's eCrew Development Program, or ECDP, was a Japan-exclusive Nintendo DS training game developed in the late 2000s. Unlike most DS titles, it was never intended for retail release, but rather it was distributed only to McDonald's restaurants in Japan as part of employee training. The game used touchscreen minigames, videos, and interactive scenarios to teach new hires how to prepare food, take orders, clean equipment, and deliver good customer service. The idea was that the DS, being portable and simple to use, would provide a friendly and accessible training tool for younger staff members, many of whom were already familiar with Nintendo's hardware. For years, the game remained an oddity, only known through promotional images and a few Japanese news reports. Because it was tied to a very specific corporate training initiative and never sold to the public, most assumed it would just become lost forever if McDonald's stopped using it. Collectors and lost media enthusiasts were intrigued, but there was no sign of the software itself, only marketing material and vague descriptions of how the program functioned. However, that would change in June 2020 when a physical copy of the eCrew development program as well as the exclusive McDonald's brand DS surfaced on Yahoo Auctions Japan. YouTuber Nick Robinson bought the system and successfully dumped its file contents, making the ROM publicly available. It's New Year's Eve Pocket Monsters Encore. It's New Year's Eve Pocket Monsters Encore is an hour-long New Year's Eve special for the Pokémon anime that was set to air on December 31st, 1997, between episodes 39 and 40. It was most likely just a simple recap of the show's most notable events up to that point, but was ultimately cancelled due to the fallout of the infamous Pokémon seizure incident that occurred earlier in the month due to the episode I talked about in Layer 1. Donkey Kong Racing. Donkey Kong Racing was a cancelled GameCube game developed by Rare as a spiritual sequel to Diddy Kong Racing. The concept went beyond simple racing as players could switch between animals that they were racing on mid-race, taking advantage of their unique abilities, and navigate tracks filled with hazards such as falling trees and roaming wildlife. Unfortunately, Donkey Kong Racing never made it past early development. Rare was in deep financial shit at the time, and Nintendo eventually sold the company to Microsoft in 2002. Since Rare no longer had access to Nintendo's Donkey Kong license, the project was reworked into Saberman Stampede, an Xbox-exclusive game featuring Rare's older mascot Saberman instead of the Kongs. Poképark Asari Taikai DS. Poképark Asari Taikai DS was a Japan-exclusive Nintendo DS game released in March 2005 at a temporary Pokémon-themed venue called Poképark in Nagoya. The game was acquired using Nintendo's Download Play service. Download Play let Nintendo and its partners distribute games at stores, events, or kiosks. This game would let you fish for water-type Pokémon in a river-like environment. You could store up to 5 different Pokémon based on size, level, and rarity, and compete for high scores that were displayed on an external leaderboard. It was developed as a short, location-specific experience, giving fans a unique interactive attraction during the Poképark events. The game is considered lost media because Download Play titles only resided temporarily inside of a DS's RAM, disappearing when the system was powered off. Only a handful of gameplay videos uploaded by a user provide evidence that the game once existed, but these clips do not preserve the software itself. Variants of the game were reportedly available at Pokémon Center stores, Pokémon Festa events, and even in Taiwan's Poképark 2006, yet none of these versions have been recovered either. Despite the surviving videos and documentation, without a recovered ROM or playable build, Poképark Asari Taikai DS remains completely lost media.
Chinese Nvidia Shield Mario Kart Wii port. First released in May 2015, the Nvidia Shield was initially marketed by Nvidia as a microconsole, emphasizing its ability to play downloaded games and stream games from a compatible PC on a local network or via the GeForce Now subscription service. As with all other Android TV devices, it can also stream content from various sources using apps, and also supports 4K resolution video. Now you may be asking, what the hell does this have to do with Nintendo Lost Media? Well, for some reason, only in China, the Nvidia Shield would release with 4K quality remasters of Wii games, some of which including Mario Galaxy, Donkey Kong Country Returns, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, among others. These games were all officially released, and they aren't lost, but there was one game that was shown off in promotional material such as this video right here. This game never released to the public, that was Mario Kart Wii. My guess as to why it was scrapped is because complications with online, as the Wii's online functionality had shut down far before the Nvidia Shield was being released in China. This was back in 2017, mind you, 3 years after Mario Kart Wii's official servers were dead and buried. Mario Kart XXL. Mario Kart XXL is a previously lost Game Boy Advance tech demo developed by Denaris Entertainment Software in 2004. The demo was pitched to Nintendo of Europe, but ultimately never released. The gameplay of Mario Kart XXL was limited to a single track featuring Mario in a 3D overhead view. The track resembles Peach Circuit from Mario Kart Super Circuit, with a lower background layer depicting beach islands in an ocean, which kinda looks like Shy Guy Beach. Despite the presence of coins and a lap counter, you can't collect coins or complete additional laps. The demo also has no items, drifting mechanics, and other gameplay elements typical of the Mario Kart series. The demo was distributed on a Game Boy Color cartridge shell, which is unusual for GBA software. It was discovered in August 2015 by the YouTube channel Steven78, which recorded and uploaded footage of the demo being played on a GameCube via the Game Boy Player accessory. This video provided the first public glimpse of the demo. In October 2022, the demo resurfaced online when video game preservationist Forest of Illusion uploaded it to the internet. Nintendo Arcade. Nintendo Arcade was a website developed and published by Nintendo, which hosted online Adobe Flash games made to promote various Nintendo games and franchises. In total, 38 games were published on the website between 2006 and 2007, before the website was taken down in late 2007. Many of the games which were once available on the website have been saved to the Wayback Machine. These games were subsequently archived via the web game preservation project Blue Maximo's Flashpoint and can be played using the Flashpoint software. However, several of the games have not been saved and currently remain lost. Of the 38 games, 13 are still lost. Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Games 3DS. In June 2013, Sega confirmed that a new Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games title was coming to the 3DS and Wii U. However, after the Wii U version came out, the 3DS version was never released and the reasons behind its cancellation remain unclear. Despite the absence of an official 3DS release, there are some indications that the game was in development. Amazon UK listings during the period were up, promoting a 3DS version, albeit without box art. Additionally, some promotional materials and press releases mention the 3DS as a platform for the game. The lack of an official release and the disappearance of any promotional materials have led to speculation about the reasons behind the cancellation. Some theories suggest that the 3DS version was scrapped due to development challenges or shifting priorities within Sega and Nintendo. Others believe that the game's development was halted because of the focus on the Wii U version, which was the primary platform for the series at the time. This all makes the 3DS port a lost and potentially non-existent piece of media. Waluigi's Toenail Clipping Party. There's some disturbing, even illegal entries on this Iceberg chart. However, I think this one takes the title as the most disgusting one I'll talk about. The game was made to promote Mario Tennis for the Nintendo 64 and was discovered in a Nintendo Power magazine article. In this game, the player is tasked with clipping Waluigi's toenails and catching them in a jar. In the Nintendo Power Online section from the September 2000 issue of Nintendo Power, there is an entry titled, "Mamma Mia, it's Waluigi," describing the contents of the promotional website waluigi.com. No archive version of this Flash game has ever surfaced, thank God. Wangan Sensen Red City. Wangan Sensen Red City is a cancelled Virtual Boy game that was set to be released sometime in 1996. The game, like many others, was likely cancelled due to the failure of the Virtual Boy. Translating the title of the game suggests that it would have been a tactical war simulator, and the screenshots seem to confirm this. A prototype is known to exist, as well as 3 screenshots of the game. Besides this, little information is known, and no prototype has ever surfaced online. Halo DS. In January 2007, IG Editor-in-Chief Matt Casamassina claimed to have played a version of Halo for the Nintendo DS. Later that year, on October 2nd, he demonstrated on-camera in-game footage of what he described as an early development version of Halo DS. The demo featured dual-wielding and a rendition of the Halo 2 map Zanzibar. The bottom screen of the Nintendo DS was utilized primarily for the motion tracker and also displayed the player's weapons and shield health. Despite the gameplay that was shown, Bungie, the developer of the Halo series, claimed that this demo was an unsolicited pitch and not officially sanctioned project. Bungie employees Brian Gerard and Frank O'Connor stated that while it's possible someone created a prototype and attempted to pitch it, there was never any officially funded or sanctioned development of a DS Halo game. As of now, the demo has not been officially released to the public. Kirby Bowl 64. Kirby Bowl 64 is the unreleased prototype of what eventually became Kirby's Air Ride for the GameCube. Nintendo released Kirby's Bowl for the SNES in 1994. Later, in 1995, a sequel was announced alongside Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wing 64 for Nintendo's next console. Kirby Bowl 64 was covered in magazine previews and had some early footage debut at Nintendo's 1995 Shoshinkai trade show. However, when the Nintendo 64 launched in 1996, Kirby had simply vanished. Eventually, the game resurfaced after being retooled into Kirby's Air Ride. Footage and previews confirmed that Kirby Bowl 64 was a 3D evolution of its predecessor, where Kirby assumes the role of a golf ball. To date, no playable version of Kirby Bowl 64 has ever surfaced, and very little footage of the game is currently available. Mario's Face. Mario's Face is a DS tech demo that was developed by Nintendo EAD and shown off at E3 2004 to display the capabilities of Nintendo's then new system, the Nintendo DS. The player could select Mario or Wario and then use the stylus on the touchscreen to grab parts of their face. You could pull and stretch them, similar to the Mario 64 title screen. This feature was also put into Super Mario 64 DS, albeit in a much simpler form. This particular demo has not been shown since its E3 presentation and has never been dumped online. Pikachu DS. Similarly at E3 2004, Nintendo showcased a tech demo starring Pikachu. It was made to show off the console's 3D capabilities, microphone, and touchscreen. The player could engage in various activities with a 3D model of Pikachu, including grabbing and stretching its body parts, which is kinda like the last tech demo, tracing a picture of Pikachu, using the stylus to scratch off scratch cards, playing a guitar and xylophone, or measuring Magikarp that Pikachu caught. The demo has never surfaced outside of demonstrations, and no ROM is known to exist. Terubi Denwa Super Mario World. Terubi Denwa Super Mario World is an arcade game that was released in 1992 by band Presto. The game consisted of Mario asking the players puzzle-based questions or action-based questions. Terubi Denwa Super Mario World was exclusive to Japan, and for years its ROM file had never been distributed online. Most game screenshots and video footage are very low quality. James Bond Smash Melee. There was very nearly a point where Pierce Brosnan's James Bond was added to Super Smash Bros. Melee. Soon after the original Super Smash Bros. Game released, series creator Masahiro Sakurai ran a poll on the game's official Japanese website asking fans who they would be interested in seeing if there was ever a second Smash Bros. James Bond actually ended up ranking 7th overall, which illustrates that there was a significant amount of fan demand for the character to be playable. While this obviously didn't end up happening, the story as to why is still fascinating to look back upon. Submarine Tech Demo. Submarine Tech Demo was a demo broadcast over DS Download Play in E3 2005. Not much is really known about this demo, aside from the fact that it was shown off at E3 2004 as well, and it later evolved into the 3DS launch title Steel Diver. Nintendo On Extended Trailer. Nintendo On was a hoax video that surfaced online throughout 2005 and 2006 as an alleged trailer for Nintendo's upcoming console. The video was created entirely by Pablo Belmont, who you may know as the guy who created the Mario Galaxy DS hoax. This Nintendo On video was popular enough to trick a majority of fans online, as well as garner the attention of Reggie Fils-Aimé himself. However, the video that surfaced online is a rushed recreation and not the original extended video. The video was in production when rumors in online forums began regarding a new and upcoming Nintendo console. While not much is known about this video's production, it is believed to have been very high in production quality and energy. Pablo had passed out and crashed into bed several times due to the workflow. At an unknown timestamp during production, Pablo's hard drive crashed, which left most of the files for the project wiped or corrupted. Due to the rebuild likely taking up lots of time, Pablo decided not to use parts of the uncorrupted and recovered files, but rather he'd quickly whip up a recreation of the final project. The extended version of this video was planned to be at least 30 minutes in length, and the final video only represents 10% of what Pablo had in mind for the video. The only piece of content Pablo was able to recover from the extended version was the Metroid and Mario game parts. It is believed that hundreds of gigabytes of data were wiped. The final video was shared online before E3 2005, which was Pablo's planned release and why it was rushed for production. Carving. Carving is a Nintendo DS tech demo shown off at E3 2004. As the name suggests, it appears to have featured the ability to carve objects, which included a bat, Mario, a trophy, and an unknown object, possibly themed around Yoshi. Footage of this demo in action is kind of scarce and no playable build has ever surfaced. This game also wasn't reworked into a different title, which is usually the fate with most of Nintendo's small tech showcases. New Super Mario Bros. Mii. New Super Mario Bros. Mii is a tech demo for the Wii U shown off at E3 2011. It was based on the Wii game New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but it had new levels and allowed the players to play as Mii characters. It was meant to demonstrate the Wii U's off-TV play mode, which allowed the game to be played on the Wii U gamepad without using the TV screen. When the Wii U was released in the following year in 2012, one of its launch titles, New Super Mario Bros. U, was very similar to this demo. The actual demo hasn't been seen since E3 2011 and is currently unavailable. Stage Debut. Stage Debut was another cancelled game that was created for the Nintendo GameCube. The game was designed to be used alongside the cancelled Game Boy Advance camera peripheral called the Game Eye. Using the camera, you could take a picture of your face and then import it onto your character's model in-game. The game was said to feature characters from the Super Mario Bros., Animal Crossing, and Pikmin series of games.
The game's only known public showcase was at E3 2003, which demonstrated how the Game Eye would transfer photos to the GameCube to be used in-game. Though it was never officially confirmed, the game is widely believed to have been cancelled because of the Game Boy Advance peripheral Game Eye never coming out. At E3 2008, Shigeru Miyamoto said that the game was, in my mind, still alive, by pointing out the game's connection between the introduction of Mii's and the Mii channel on the Wii. And all that remains of the game are screenshots and videos taken of the demonstration at E3 2003. Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers. In the early 2000s, game development company Rare was making several games for the Game Boy Advance and GameCube, many of which starred Nintendo-owned characters. One of these games was Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers. Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers was going to be a puzzle game with an isometric view. Donkey Kong would drop coconuts filled with paint, and the player must use this paint to make squares and rectangles. In September of 2002, when Microsoft bought Rare Limited, they had to cancel and/or rework many of the games they were developing. Donkey Kong Coconut Crackers was cancelled, and the idea was reworked into a Game Boy Advance game called It's Mr. Pants. Mario Motors. Announced in 2007 for the DS, Mario Motors was a planned racing game directed by Yoshiaki Koizumi, the famed Nintendo developer behind Super Mario Galaxy and later Super Mario Odyssey. Unlike a typical Mario Kart game, Mario Motors wasn't about driving cars on tracks, but it was centered on building and racing your own engines. The idea was that the players would design virtual engines by sculpting metal parts with a DS stylus and then testing how well they ran. The DS's touchscreen and microphone were supposed to play a huge role in the gameplay. For example, players would sculpt engines on the bottom screen by cutting and shaping metal, then use the microphone to blow away the shavings, almost like a digital workshop. Once the engine was built, it could be tested in races where performance depended on how well the player had crafted it. Despite being publicly revealed, Mario Motors quietly disappeared. Nintendo never officially cancelled the game, but it simply faded out of mention after its announcements. Cat Roots. Cat Roots was a Nintendo 64 game of unknown genre developed by Marigold Management. Cat Roots is kind of an elusive title as it was never officially announced despite a playable build being present at E3 2000. An animated teaser for the game was also shown off at E3 2000 on a display at Nintendo's booth. There was also at least one playable demo booth available at the venue, as you can just barely see it in the back of this picture here. However, no information is known about the playable demo itself. In fact, when IGN asked Nintendo of America employees about the mysterious display, their answer was simply, "We were told to just put it out there." As Cat Roots was in development late into the Nintendo 64's lifespan, it may have been cancelled due to the release of the GameCube in 2001. Nintendo Pennant Chase Baseball. Nintendo Pennant Chase Baseball is an unreleased 2005 GameCube exclusive sports game that was developed by Exile Interactive and was going to be published by Nintendo. Before the game's release was delayed indefinitely, the game was shown off at E3 2005 and the game was originally expected to be released for $49.99. The game was an officially licensed MLB product with all real-life teams and ballpark stadiums from the present and past planned to be featured in the game. The game was originally announced to be released on April 4th to coincide with the MLB's opening day where the Boston Red Sox faced off against the New York Yankees, but was later delayed to June 13th for unknown reasons. To this day, no build of the game has ever been leaked to the public, and all that currently exists online about the game are some screenshots and the game's E3 2005 trailer, along with footage of the game's demo at E3 2005. Wii Connect 24. When the Wii launched in 2006, one of the most unique features was Wii Connect 24, a background online service that kept the system connected to the internet even while in standby mode. It powered the message board, automatic game updates, and of course, the Wii's channels. In Japan, the service also offered exclusive channels like the Digicam Print channel, which let users print digital photos at convenience stores, and the Demae channel, an official food delivery app for ordering meals directly from the Wii. For a long time, Wii Connect 24 content was considered lost media. When Nintendo shut the service down in 2013, most of the functions simply stopped working. However, over the years, preservationists have worked to bring these services back. Projects like Wii Connect 24 and Wii Link managed to reverse engineer Nintendo's original servers, restoring much of Wii Connect 24's functionality. Super Mario no Katsu Anzen. Super Mario no Katsu Anzen is an animated public service announcement based on Super Mario Bros. 3, released in 1989 for use in schools across Japan. The video was released on two formats, both VHS and 16mm film. Very little is known about the video, and its release status is a mystery. They were sold to only Japanese schools and were otherwise not made available to the public. As of 2025, there's still no full version of this film on the internet. The Grinder. The Grinder is an unreleased first-person shooter game for the Nintendo Wii, developed by High Voltage Software. The game failed to meet its original release date of fall of 2011, and has since remained unreleased. Although High Voltage has yet to make an official statement about what happened to the game, it's obviously no longer in development and probably will never see the light of day. In the grinder, players controlled one of 4 characters, each with their own unique attributes which can be upgraded as the game progresses. You would have had to use different techniques to defeat certain enemies, and would have access to a large number of weapons. The game would also offer players complete customization of the controls, as it was stated to support Wii Motion Plus. Beta Wii channels. On September 14, 2006, a Japanese Nintendo press conference was held which featured footage of a bunch of Beta Wii content. Most interesting of all, there was footage of the Beta Wii menu, alongside all of the Beta Wii channels. On this menu, we can see early versions of the Disc channel, Me channel, Photo channel, Shop channel, Forecast channel, and News channel. All of these channels, aside from the Disc and Me channel, have entirely different banner images, which is quite interesting. The Beta Me channel's gameplay is almost exactly the same as the final, except there are some additional sound effects when selecting certain buttons, and also a completely new music track. No footage of the other channels actually exists, aside from the Forecast channel. The menu for this one is very different, taking on a teal, blue, and white color scheme, rather than the dark blue and green design of the final. Wii Obstacle Course. The obstacle course was part of Nintendo's remote pointer demo used to illustrate the precision and responsiveness of the Wii Remote's pointer and motion sensing. This was available to play at E3 2006, a few months before the Wii's release. You control the Mii and would have to guide them with the pointer through an obstacle course. It's quite self-explanatory. The weird idle animations for the Miis were actually found in the files of Wii Play, probably because this demo actually shares a lot of DNA with that game's Pose Me minigame. However, the files required to play the actual obstacle course demo have never been dumped online, making this demo currently lost media. Wii Sports Airplane. At E3 2005, Nintendo showcased an early tech demo of what would eventually become Wii Sports. This prototype wasn't a finished game, but rather a collection of simple sport-like experiences meant to demonstrate how the Wii Remote's motion controls could work. Among the sports being shown, most evolved into what we know today: tennis, baseball, and golf, but there was also a 4th activity that never made it into the final release: an airplane sport. The airplane demo placed the player in control of a small cartoonish plane, which could be flown by tilting and moving the remote. Some videos see you having to fly through rings, much like a simplified version of Pilot Wings. The location of this tech demo was very similar to the Woohoo Island location we'd see in 2009's Wii Sports Resort. All of the beta builds of any Wii Sports minigame shown off at E3 2005 have never been dumped online, making them all lost media. "100 Gode Star Eikaiwa." 100 Gode Star Eikaiwa was a Japan-exclusive game in development for Wii, and it was never released. The game featured Miis and was briefly announced at E3 2008. Not much else is really documented about it. I did find an article talking about its disappearance from Nintendo's list of upcoming games in 2010. I'll read an excerpt for you now. 100 Gode Star Eikaiwa was announced in October 2 years ago as a software that allows you to learn English conversation through videos and Miis. It was reported at the time that the content of the program that was broadcast on NHK was a game adaptation. After that, the information was cut off, and the materials remained on the list scheduled for release until July 29th, but the title was lost in the new materials posted on October 29th, and it seems that the release was effectively cancelled. My apologies for the questionable grammar. I had to translate what was said since the article was written entirely in Japanese. Cancelled Chinese IQ games. IQ is a Chinese video game localization and console manufacturing company which is also a subsidiary of Nintendo. The company manufactured and distributed official Nintendo products in mainland China until 2018. Along the way, a lot of Chinese localized versions of many Nintendo games were lost due to a lack of preservation for these Chinese titles. On the Game Boy Advance, the Chinese localizations that are lost are Donkey Kong Country, Golden Sun The Lost Ages, Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire, Pokémon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap, and WarioWare Twisted. On the Nintendo DS, the lost games are Big Brain Academy, Daigaso Band Brothers, Electroplankton, Kirby Canvas Curse, Metroid Prime Hunters, and Ridge Racer 3D. The entire IQ Wii console as a whole is lost, apart from the console menu and a few games, but everything else is unavailable. Some of these games include Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, Mario Kart Wii, Super Mario Galaxy, Wii Play, and Wii Sports. Testimony. Testimony refers to a once-lost video that was recovered from Nintendo's official Japanese website from 2006. It was a video featuring many of the developers and minds behind the Wii talking about how it works, why it's special, and their time developing it. The video is entirely in Japanese, and the visuals are very evocative of that aesthetic Nintendo was trying to achieve with the Wii back in this era. Nintendo Video. Nintendo Video was a service on the Nintendo 3DS where you could watch various short-form video content such as music videos, movie trailers, comedy clips, and short films. The service could be accessed via the Nintendo Video app, which was available for free on the Nintendo eShop. The Nintendo Video service was introduced on July 14, 2011, and was discontinued on March 31, 2014. Additionally, a similar application called Eurosport was released exclusively in Europe. So many videos that were broadcast on the Nintendo Video service have become lost media, and by the sheer amount of them that are lost, it's unlikely that all will ever be found. Mi Original Software. Otano no Ona no Yoranai Teko, meaning fortune-telling notebook for adult women in English, was a cancelled Nintendo DS game in development by a dev team within Nintendo. The title was eventually reworked into the game Tomodachi Collection. Later, Nintendo partnered up with development studio Jamsworks and released a fortune-telling Nintendo DS game called DS Yoranai Seikatsu, but its significance to the original game is unknown. While very little information about this game is available due to it being completely cancelled, it is known that the game would have been a fortune-telling tool, and that the players could have had avatars based on themselves put into the game, with this concept being later turned into the Mii's in the Mii channel on the Wii. Even though it wasn't released, this game is a rather important one in the Mii franchise, as the game was the first ever instance of avatars resembling Mii's being utilized. Only a few software titles were predating it, like Stage Debut, but that game had avatars that didn't really look like Mii's and rather was just pictures of yourself. All existing media regarding this lost game is a few screenshots showing the Mii Maker, the main room, and both the Iwata and Sakamoto's Mii faces, as well as a whopping 7 seconds of footage appearing in a Tomodachi Collection overview trailer. In this footage, we can see these two Mii's in the pink and green room, and they don't exactly do much outside of just sit there and dance a little. This footage does confirm though that this game was being worked on in 2005, and that a playable build does exist. Bomberman 3DS. Bomberman 3DS was a game that was originally scheduled for release on the Nintendo 3DS, being produced by Hudson Soft and distributed by its parent company Konami. The name Bomberman 3DS was only a placeholder name. The game was first announced in February 2011 during a video where it listed some of the games launching on the system that year. The last time it was ever acknowledged was at E3 2011 before being cancelled. From the looks of it, this game appears to be similar to the game Bomberman 64. Mario Galaxy DS. Super Mario Galaxy DS is a fake video game hoax that claims to show a new port of Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii on the DS. Similar to the Nintendo On video I talked about earlier, the trailer to show the fake game was created by video game designer Pablo Belmont. Pablo made the video as part of his college video production class, as he was tasked with creating a viral video. When the video was first uploaded in 2007, it only got 700,000 views, earning Pablo a B. The video shows that if you collect all stars in Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii with Mario and Luigi, you could use the DS's download play feature and unlock Super Mario Galaxy DS. Many people actually believed that this was a real unreleased game, however, it was entirely a hoax. McDonald's eCrew Development Program Canadian version. As you may know, the McDonald's eCrew Development Program was only ever released in Japan. Or well, that may not be the case. On a video about the program, a comment noted that an English and Canadian version had been tested in Quebec. The comment reads, "There was testing in Longueuil, Quebec as well. There were in fact a French and English version of the game, as well as a bonus task in which you can create poutine, a popular dish in Canada involving fries, cheese, and gravy." The fact this game apparently included poutine is important. Canadian McDonald's added poutine to their menus nationwide in 2013. This suggests that the Canadian version would have been released in 2012 or 2013, as Canadians outside of Quebec could learn how to make the new recipe. The search for the lost version of this game went on from 2020 to early 2021, where the forum regarding it has been inactive since. It's unknown if this game ever existed, but if it did, it's certainly lost. Flowers Blooming Competition. Flower Blooming Competition, also known as Hanasaki Gassen, was a cancelled game for the Game Boy Advance. Hanasaki Gassen was announced at Nintendo Space World 2000 and also planned for E3 under the English translated name Flower Blooming Competition. According to a former employee from the development team, Hanasaki Gassen was a real-time strategy game which involved a very complex AI system. Not much else is known about the game, and not a single screenshot has ever surfaced. Tomodachi Life Lessons in Space. From 2013 to 2014, Nintendo created a live-action short series called Tomodachi Life Lessons in Space. The series was created for Nintendo Video and was meant to promote the game Tomodachi Life. The series was about two aliens who had come to take over the Earth, but they used Tomodachi Life as a source for what humans do on Earth. The series ran for 8 episodes before Nintendo discontinued it. However, it's unknown if any of these episodes were actually created outside of the first 2. This is because in May 2023, 2 of the 8 episodes were actually found by YouTuber The Hourglass Archive. Wii Sports Resort lost minigames. From a small interview with Wired Online magazine, a Wii Sports Resort developer shared some lost info about the massively popular Wii Sports Resort. "We considered fishing and a water slide activity before deciding on the final 12 events," Suguchi said. As for more unconventional concepts, we created a pretty fun prototype of kendama, a traditional Japanese toy that just didn't fit the game's theme.
LodgeNet. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, many North American hotels had televisions equipped with interactive systems called LodgeNet. Normally, this service offered pay-per-view movies and some simple arcade-style games, but in 1995, Nintendo signed a deal with LodgeNet to bring Nintendo's home room entertainment to thousands of hotel rooms. Guests could rent time on a menu of Nintendo titles directly through the TV and play them using a special controller provided in the room. Early on, the service focused on Nintendo 64 games, but it would later expand to GameCube and Game Boy Advance offerings. Because LodgeNet's system didn't use retail cartridges or discs in the TV itself, all of the games were broadcast by central servers or proprietary boards installed behind the scenes. Collectors and preservationists know that LodgeNet used custom builds for many games, but very few of these ROMs or system images have surfaced publicly. Super Mario Ambassadors of Funk. In the early 1990s, the band Ambassadors of Funk teamed up with Nintendo to make a hip-hop album based on the game series Super Mario Bros. These songs were later released on an album named Super Mario Compact Disco. While the album was only released in Japan on March 21, 1993, one song based on Super Mario Land was on CD, and as of 2009, it's on iTunes too. What's interesting is that a promotional video was made for the song. The video was up on YouTube for a while but was removed due to a copyright claim. It was filmed at the Chessington World of Adventures and featured the voice of MC Mario singing along to the song, 2 dancers, and a person in a Mario costume. This video has since been preserved and can be viewed on the website Dailymotion. Bulborb.com. Bulborb.com seems to refer to this weird promotional website that a fan must have ran sometime from 2013 to 2017, supposedly to promote the Pikmin games. It's a website that basically has everything Bulborb related on it. A Bulborb is an enemy from the Pikmin games. This website has been shut down for a while, but by using the Wayback Machine, certain pages on the website are still intact. Some tabs on this site claim that they'll redirect you to Pikmin games and such, but the pages these buttons would redirect you to don't work anymore, so currently most of this website is lost. Alex Tolio. Alex Tolio was a Greek Mario 64 speedrunner who notoriously broke his neck in 2013 and spent most of the summer in a neck brace. Because he was immobilized for so long, he focused all of his energy and time into one thing, speedrunning Super Mario 64. Because he was not able to really get up and go out, he couldn't speedrun Mario 64 on the most optimal version, the N64 version, and rather he had to make do with what he already had, so he was running the game on the Wii Virtual Console version. Tolio achieved impressive times on the Virtual Console, most notably a 49.08 in a 70 star, which was 1 second faster than another user's Siglamek's N64 world record of 49.09. He also had a 1 hour 49 minutes and 4 second run in a 120 star. Despite their significance, these runs have become lost media because neither Tolio nor the community moderators archived or downloaded them. Mario's Mission Earth. Mario's Mission Earth was a cancelled third installment of the SNES educational game that would have followed a similar formula to Mario is Missing and Mario's Time Machine, with the main focus being set on the solar system. Nothing is known about the project apart from a mention on the resume of Mark Knight, the composer for the SNES versions of Mario is Missing and Mario's Time Machine. Animal Crossing Movie Calendar. In 2007, a line of promotional calendars were supposedly rolled out to promote the Animal Crossing movie that came out a year prior. On Reddit, a user by the name of Mario123311 posted a picture of a presumably lost Animal Crossing poster. He stated, This is an item I've sought after for many years now, but I've never found an available auction for. I wasn't sure if anyone else had seen it, was aware of it, or if somebody knows who might have it in their possession. It has some pretty uncommon and rare artwork that I'd love to have preserved or taken pictures of in some form. Aside from that though, these are all that's left. I found these from various Japanese blog posts dating back to nearly over 2 decades ago. The calendars have still not been found. Purple Yoshi Tech Demo. The so-called Purple Yoshi Tech Demo is an alleged Game Boy Advance demonstration program set to date back to around 2000. It featured a purple-colored Yoshi character battling mechanical enemies in a 3D-looking environment. The only widely circulated evidence of its existence is a single image showing the scene, which some claimed originated from IGN at the time. However, nothing beyond this image has ever been verified. No cartridge, ROM, video footage, or development documentation have surfaced. Even the supposed original source of the screenshot cannot be traced, and the visual style doesn't perfectly line up with known official Nintendo tech demos from that era. Marionette. At E3 2001, Nintendo accidentally shared a press release that showed 3 mysterious upcoming titles: Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario 128, and Marionette. The list was pulled shortly after, but people had already had their curiosity piqued. In August 2001, during an interview with IGN, Shigeru Miyamoto talked about the title from the press release. And as for Marionette, it is still under development. It is not a Mario game, but an actual marionette game utilizing a puppet. I am hoping to make something both complicated and simple at the same time, which is kind of a contradiction. But already we are experimenting, and once again, sometime in the future we may be able to show you something on it. In another IGN article, Miyamoto talks about how Marionette was toyed around in concept stages for the N64 and GameCube, but never really got developed into a full game. Marionette is probably more suited for something like the Wii, said Miyamoto. However, that type of game is difficult. Just looking at it, it seems to be fun, but then you get the feeling of, well, what do I do now? As of now, not a single image of the game has ever surfaced, and not much is really even known about it. Lost 4D Pokémon Film. Pokémon 4D, Pikachu's Ocean Adventure, is a short anime film that was shown in 4D. The film had a limited run in Japan in select theaters starting in 2006. It was later dubbed into English and premiered at the IMAX 3D Theater at Jordan's Furniture in Avon, Massachusetts. It was distributed by Simex iWorks. It played there for a while, but it is no longer playing. Simex iWorks claims their rights to the film have expired. It was screened again in 2017 together with Pokémon 3D Adventure Miu o Sagase in Japan theaters and again in 2020. Super Mario World Mario Attack. Super Mario World Mario Attack is an arcade game developed by Banpresto in 1996 based on the SNES game Super Mario World. The game involves landing Mario on items of different values in metals. The player has the option of doubling or tripling their bet, and you must dive within 18 seconds. The player loses if they dive into an enemy or a pit, or if they run out of time. They win if Mario, Yoshi, or Princess Toadstool appear on the screen. The arcade game was only released in Japan, and no ROM has been dumped to the internet, though the machine is owned by a Japanese YouTuber, Sekai. Windows XP Famicom. The Windows XP Famicom game is one of several bootleg Famicom games that was released in the early 2000s. Other games have replicated Windows 98 and Windows 2000 with similar content and interactions. Based on the analysis of its BIOS screen, this Famicom game was likely established in 2003. This means it was created not long after the XP operating system itself was first released on October 25, 2001. This bootleg, as the game's title suggests, replicates much of the operating system, including the loading and BIOS screens. Oddly, however, the menu screen is not of XP but is of its predecessor, 2000. Unlike 98 and 2000, this bootleg game has never been officially dumped on the internet. In October 2013, it was reported that a copy was sold on eBay for $89 after 11 bids were made, with its location originally being tied to Bangkok, Thailand. As of the present day, only a few screenshots confirm its existence. Gohan DS. Gohan is a cancelled DS game pitched by the company Retro Studios. Possibly known as the Haunt Project, in this game, players would take the role of a young Boo freshly graduated in the Haunt University. In these images, you can also see a Boo professor teaching his students about some sort of magic cauldron. The Boo protagonist would have been chosen to be dipped into it for whatever reason, possibly to give him new powers. Concept art shows this Boo in different poses, as it could be stretched out and moved around like in Kirby Canvas Curse. The only media surrounding this game that exists is concept art and drawings, some of which are kind of strange. Like this one, I mean, why is he being crucified? Unity. Unity was a shoot-'em-up game being developed by Jeff Minter and published by Lionhead Studios for the Nintendo GameCube. Jeff Minter is a famous video game developer who notably uses this signature abstract art style. It was in development from the beginning of 2003 until its cancellation at the end of 2004. It was going to feature this trademark psychedelic graphical style, matched with an interactive music component. The music was going to be provided by someone who was reportedly well known and appropriate for the game's style, but the artist himself was never revealed. Unity was very highly anticipated, however, the game just slipped off the face of the earth. Some of the Unity technology could have been reused for Space Giraffe, a game available for the Xbox 360 arcade and PCs. Game Boy Music. Game Boy Music was a music game for the Game Boy Advance shown to the public at the Tokyo Game Show in 2001. By using the A and B buttons in combination with the D-pad, you can make your own music on the GBA. The game was going to come packaged with a battery-powered pocket speaker and cable. The title was cancelled and eventually brought back as Jam with the Band for the Nintendo DS. Demae-kan Wii U. Demae-kan was a Japanese food delivery service that Nintendo offered on 2 of its consoles. It first appeared on the Wii as a Wii channel in 2009 and allowed users in Japan to order meals directly from participating restaurants. In August 8, 2013, a version of the service launched for the Wii U under the name Demae-kan. Unlike the Wii channel, which had its own custom menus and interface, the Wii U release mostly acted as a launcher for the company's website. Both the Wii and Wii U versions of this service were discontinued on March 31, 2017, and removed from the Wii Shop channel and Nintendo eShop shortly beforehand. The Wii U edition is now considered lost, or at least poorly documented. While its existence and launch date are known, literally no footage of it on the internet exists, and screenshots of people actually using it are very scarce. Kirby Slide. Kirby Slide, also known as Foxbox Kirby E-Card, or Kirby Puzzle, is a simple 8-block sliding puzzle game that was released as an e-reader title on the Game Boy Advance. The card was bundled with Nintendo Power Volume 175 and given away at select Toys R Us stores. This game was made to promote Kirby Right Back At Ya, and the sliding puzzle is even based on the Kirby's main artwork from the anime. After completing the puzzle, the game displays a simple congratulatory message and then offers the player to either restart the puzzle or quit back into the e-reader menu. Who Are You Running From? Unedited Photo. Who Are You Running From refers to a series of photos found on the Game Boy camera software. They are really odd images of men with drawn-on makeup and other facial details. It's quite unsettling to look at, and would probably scar any kid who used the Game Boy camera back in the day. However, the lost media tied to this oddity is that the unedited version of any of these photos have never surfaced online. It's unknown who these men are, why the photos were included in the first place, nothing really adds up. Jammin' with Mario and Mario's Driving Range. 2 lost Flash games, Mario's Driving Range and Jamming with Mario, were posted on the Happy Meal website for a brief time in 2006. These games were playable on the Happy Meal website and were part of an official Mario toy promotion for McDonald's Happy Meals. Archived websites announcing the toy line for these games still exist, but no screenshots or videos of these 2 games seem to be anywhere online. There is a downloadable screensaver that was a part of this promotion that is preserved on the Super Mario Broth website, but aside from that, information about these games is very scarce. Also, this screensaver is just absolutely hideous. I mean, wow. Cosmic Walker. In the fall season of 2008, Nintendo held a conference where they would share information about upcoming games. The game was created by Gaia, which is a company founded by former employee of Atlas Games, Koji Okada. This company had released 5 games under their belt before working on Cosmic Walker. In his movie reel from the 2008 conference, this short 6-second clip of the game is all we really got, alongside 3 screenshots. In the footage, we can clearly see advanced spaceships and space stations, which suggests that the game takes place in the near future. The fact that this 6-second gameplay montage shows no traditional action sequences like gunfights or boss battles, it led a lot of fans to believe that this game, Cosmic Walker, may have a lot in common with a game like Endless Ocean. Wii Relax. Wii Relax is a cancelled Wii exclusive game, and it was filed as a trademark but never released, and was speculated to be software for the Wii Vitality Sensor. It, along with the Wii Vitality Sensor, never released, and have hardly been mentioned on the internet. Untitled Sleep Game. The Untitled Sleep Game is an unreleased Nintendo game only known from patents. It is a project for the Nintendo Quality of Life initiatives, and it's unknown if this idea will be brought to life. Similar to Pokémon Sleep, Wii Relax, and Sleep Clock record and analyze your sleep patterns, if released, this game would encourage players to sleep better. It involves an unknown peripheral that can project and display an image and detect when the player is sleeping or awake. A patent describes it being able to display a message after the player wakes up, such as, "You had a nice sleep. Try to have sufficient sleep hours." The concept art includes Mario. Pokeball Recall PSA loud beeping noise. In 1999, Burger King introduced tiny Pokemon figurines in plastic Pokeballs after the release of Pokémon the first movie. When the Pokeball toy was opened, the top half was separated from the bottom half. This Pokeball posed as a danger to some children because when it was opened, one of the separated halves suffocated them when they placed it around their nose and mouth. This first killed a 1-year-old girl, as well as 2 other children, and it also injured an 18-month-old girl. In response, Burger King released a PSA telling its customers to throw the ball away or return it in exchange for free french fries. Apparently, sometimes before this commercial aired, there would be a loud, almost comedically loud, beeping noise to alert the viewers. No videos of this currently exist, and it's unknown if it ever existed at all, but many claim they remember seeing this on TV. Patent US 7762893. US 7762893 was a design concept for a touch-based strategy game highly resembling the Pikmin series on a device that bears a remarkable resemblance to the Nintendo DS. It was filed as a patent in January 2006 by Yuji Kondo and Yutaka Hirameki, who respectively are the main programmers and level designers for Pikmin and Pikmin 2. This patent was reportedly never turned into a game, but it does really resemble Pikmin, so, if I had to guess where it went, most of it probably turned into Pikmin. Fascination. In 1974, Nintendo released Wild Gunman, an arcade game that used 16mm film rather than video. It was a light gun shooter where the player engages in a gunfight with various Old West style outlaws. The gunmen were represented by film footage of actual live-action people. 10 years later, in 1984, it inspired the NES game of the same name. Nintendo also designed a more adult version of the game known as Fascination. This is where the lost media comes in. It was also a shooter using a light gun, but the film was significantly different. Instead of shooting cowboys, the player shot at a Swedish woman in a dress who danced around the screen. When she struck a pose, the player shoots, and instead of killing her, parts of her clothing came off. Kinda like one of those Fortnite challenges. This game was never released to the public, and likely due to the company wanting to keep a family-friendly image, they rarely mention it. Laser clay shooting system. In the 1960s, bowling became a fad in Japan. However, like all fads, its popularity faded away and many bowling alleys were abandoned by 1971. Desiring to make new use of these facilities, Hiroshi Yamauchi, president of Nintendo at the time, began devising concepts for a new game to be hosted in these buildings. In the early 1970s, Nintendo was largely a toy company but was venturing into other industries. Yamauchi's idea became known as the Laser Clay Shooting System. It could be said that this game was Nintendo's first venture into the video game industry, although it wasn't truly a video game. Despite technical problems such as the computer breaking down, it was actually a success and inspired Nintendo to get into arcade gaming. However, when the 1973 oil crisis hit, Japan cut back on unnecessary amenities, and clients began canceling their orders. No known instances of laser clay shooting systems are either operational or intact today. Pokémon PC Master. Pokémon PC Master was a Japan-exclusive educational PC game developed by Umbrella and published by the Pokémon Company, released in 2006. It taught skills such as typing, drawing, internet browsing, and using a mouse. Its website, www.pokemonpcmaster.com, went down in around 2007 and has been used by someone else since. Little else is known about this game. A CD-ROM disc for a trial version was found in January 2018, a trailer also exists, which lets us see brief gameplay footage of the lost game. Aside from this, its whereabouts are unknown. 2 Pikachu event footage. In 1998, Nintendo decorated 10 Volkswagen Beetles to promote the launch of Pokémon in the US. This was the game's kickstarting event, and almost no photos and no video of it are out there. A picture of one of these cars has surfaced, and it was briefly shown off on some Australian news broadcasts. Nintendo was no stranger to these car kind of promotions, as they did a similar thing for the Wii's launch in 2006, and then later gave away a bunch of smart cars with Wii branding as a sweepstakes promotion with Comedy Central. The broadcasts for multiple of these Comedy Central programs are also lost media, however they will be covered in a small documentary of their own that I'll release after this video. Pollen Sonata. Pollen Sonata was an experimental Wii prototype developed in 2007 by a group of 10 students from the Danish Academy of Digital Interactive Entertainment. The team built the prototype as a class project, with hopes of it eventually bringing the game into Nintendo's console. The concept was an unusual and artistic take on gaming, focusing on pollination and environmental themes, and the team even put together a teaser video to showcase the idea to potential publishers and generate interest. Despite the ambition of Paul and Sonata, it never came to fruition. While there were plans to adapt the prototypes into a full game, it lacked the funding and publisher support necessary to move it forward. As time passed, the students graduated and went on to other projects, leaving the prototype behind. Okochi Gengoro Ika. Okochi Gengoro Ika is an unreleased Nintendo 64 simulation game. During the N64 era, there was absolutely no information about this game anywhere, in magazines or other media. But it became generally known on April 12, 2007. The game is set in Japan and the main character is Kokuzo Okachi, the eldest son of a family in 5th grade. The game consists of 12 scenarios, as they're called. The events that occur in this game are extremely absurd and chaotic. In the scenario of making curry and rice for dinner, detergent, rats, and dynamite are thrown into the pot, resulting in food poisoning when they eat the finished curry. In the scene of going shopping for a TV and a tombstone, suddenly a mother and sister kill each other over one man using a fire extinguisher and a kitchen knife. Yep, that's the game. Although the publisher of the game is unknown, the development team for Okochi Gengoro Ika is almost identical to the game Gale Racer, and therefore the developer is likely to be System Seikom, which developed the same game. Gluco Boy Software. The Gluco Boy was a unique piece of technology aimed at helping children with diabetes monitor their blood sugar while also playing games. Created by Guidance Interactive Healthcare, it was essentially a blood glucose meter designed to plug into the Game Boy Advance. For years, the Gluco Boy's built-in software and games were considered lost media. Few units were publicly available, and no one had successfully extracted or preserved the ROMs online. However, this changed in 2023, as the software has finally been located and dumped. Peach's Castle. In 2002, Nintendo sent various developers a GameCube interactive tech demo in order to showcase them the graphical capabilities of the new console. In this tech demo, you can move an arrow through Peach's Castle, and in every room you can see a different graphical effect. It was never released to the public and could have been lost forever, but luckily, some time ago, the Peach's Castle tech demo was leaked online and has now been preserved. Radio Flyer. Radio Flyer is a cancelled flying game that was in development by Ocean for the Super Nintendo based on the 1992 drama movie of the same name. It was scheduled for release sometime in 1992. The game was cancelled for unknown reasons, but a possible reason could be that it was based on a movie about child abuse. In issue 23 of the UK gaming magazine Retro Gamer, it was confirmed by former Ocean employee and artist Brian Flanagan that development for Radio Flyer was axed before it even started. The movie being about child abuse appears to be the reason for its cancellation. The screenshots sent to gaming magazines could have possibly been mock-ups of what the game would have looked like. Kirby phone line recordings. In the December 1983 issue of the Japanese educational magazine 2nd Grade, there were various print ads for a Kirby call service of some kind. Players could call in and I guess have a chat with Kirby. These calls typically lasted for around 1 minute in length. Since Makiko Omoro didn't start voicing Kirby until the original Super Smash Bros. In 1999, it's unknown who voiced Kirby on these calls. The call service was discontinued on the 29th of December 1983, and none of the calls were ever archived. Call of Duty Black Ops 2 3DS. Similarly to the Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Games case from part 1 of this Iceberg video, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 had a very similar story behind it. It was listed as a purchasable game on an online store, this time being on Zavi USA, listed for $57.99. Supposedly the game was sold out, but nowhere else was this game even being mentioned outside of this one listing. So who knows who bought this game and what they were sold? It's unknown if the game ever existed at all. Splatoon Tofu Prototype. Splatoon Tofu Prototype refers to this build of Splatoon that was shown off at GDC 2018 for about a minute and a half. I'll play the clip of the developers explaining it now.
We discussed our ideas together every day until after half a year, we found ourselves with over 70 different design proposals and a number of software prototypes.
そこから生まれたのがスプラトゥーンの元となるアイデアです。
The idea that formed the basis for Splatoon emerged from this process.
最初の施策は平面的なマップ上で、直方体のキャラクターを操作し白黒のインクを吹き出すシンプルなものでした。手っ取り早く直方体でキャラクターを作ったんですけども、私たちはこれを豆腐と呼んでいました。
Our initial prototype was fairly simplistic. You would move a cube-shaped character around a flat map, shooting out white or black ink. We used cubes because they were easy to create and eventually ended up calling them blocks of tofu. Linking together multiple Wii U consoles allowed us to have team battles in which we'd compete to cover the most area with our own team's ink, and that became the core of Splatoon's gameplay. Of course, you can also attack and defeat your opponents.
Kirby Star Ride. Kirby Star Ride is a web game in the Kirby series. It was developed and published by 4Kids TV as a promotion for Kirby Right Back Atcha. It was deleted from the website along with all related Kirby content in October 2009 when the show's license expired and virtually no information on this game survived. Kirby Star Ride's exact release date is unknown. Its only recorded appearances online date back to December 5th and 6th, 2008. 3D Mario Kart Wii. In 2011, Nintendo would appear at the annual GDC, or Game Developers Conference, to show off what they had been working on and plan to release that following year. Many videos exist of Reggie and Iwata's keynotes, however, one in particular is of interest today, that being Hideki Kono's. At Kono's keynote, he mainly talked about the development of the 3DS, such as who was on the dev team, the hardware, and of course, the 3DS's big gimmick, stereoscopic 3D. Hideki Kono briefly talks about how the team was trying to make Mario Kart Wii work with a 3D effect, and they whipped up a whole demo version of the game to test things out. No footage of this demo being used has ever been shown, and probably never will be considering this was only something the developers would actually use. We did see an image of this altered version of the nunchuck with a 3D slider, but that's about it. Wii Sports Mii Support Disc. This is the Wii Sports Mii Support Disc. It is currently unknown what the purpose of this disc is. The only copy of this disc that we know exists currently is extremely scratched, to the point where it was completely unrecognizable by the Wii's disk drive. The disc's exact purpose is unknown, however, as the Wii menu has code to output an error if the Mii channel data is corrupted, it is likely that this disc is intended to remedy that in some way. Back in 2012, an illegitimate 99-cent version of Pokémon Yellow that claimed to be just like the original was removed from the iOS App Store after quickly climbing the store's paid app charts in just 1 week. The app's description showed screenshots from Nintendo's popular Game Boy RPG, yet many who got hoodwinked into a download complained that the app crashed immediately after the title screen. Even if it hadn't, though, purchasers may have been disappointed. After downloading the game, it seemed to be a simple conglomeration of Pokemon-related news and YouTube videos, rather than the promised working game. However, footage of this game in action is completely lost. Osama bin Laden's Animal Crossing save file. The link between Osama bin Laden and Animal Crossing comes from reports that a hard drive seized during the 2011 raid of his compound in Pakistan contained pirated Nintendo DS games, including Animal Crossing Wild World. This odd detail went viral. The contrast between the world's most wanted terrorist and a peaceful life simulation game was just absurd. It's impossible to know exactly why this game appeared on the drive. However, it may have belonged to one of the other residents of the compound, possibly a child, or had been downloaded simply as a part of a large cache of Western media that also included movies, anime, and other games. In any case, its presence suggested that the drive was more of a shared entertainment collection than a personal library. After the revelation, members of the Animal Crossing and Lost Media communities became curious about what bin Laden's in-game town could have looked like. Their hunt for the save file, however, ran into immediate problems. The CIA's data dump was mostly raw data and not clean, ready-to-load saves. It's unknown whether the relevant files were ever fully declassified, but it is known that Nintendo DS save formats are notoriously tricky to interpret. Nintendo Love Hotel evidence. The claim that Nintendo once ran or owned love hotels is largely a misunderstanding as a part of Nintendo's history that got exaggerated online. So, in the 1960s and early 1970s, before Nintendo became a video game company, they experimented with various side businesses to diversify beyond playing cards and toys. Among these experiments were things like Instant Rice, a taxi company, and even a love hotel. A love hotel as in one love hotel. Contemporary Japanese business records and interviews show that Nintendo did briefly operate, or at least invest in, a single establishment in Kyoto. However, it was short-lived and not a core business, and had little to do with the company's future direction. Over time, this minor venture turned into a hoax suggesting that Nintendo ran a chain of love hotels or was deeply involved in the adult industry. In reality, there's no evidence Nintendo owned more than one location or had an ongoing stake in that market. Game Boy Color Body Paint Livestream.
The Game Boy Color body paint event was a strange promotion Nintendo of America held during spring break season in March 1999. Its purpose was to draw attention to the Game Boy Color's bright new palette by literally painting swimsuit-clad college students in the handheld's official colors. The event had a beach party atmosphere and was meant to stand out from Nintendo's usually conservative image, and was one of the company's earliest attempts at mixing online content with real-world marketing stunts. At the time, Nintendo promoted the event as an online broadcast, using a Real Player G2 streaming to let people watch it over the internet. Because the livestream hasn't resurfaced today, the event is considered a piece of lost media. We know the event took place from web articles and such, but no footage, full recordings, or even screenshots have been preserved publicly. Rap Attack. Rap Attack is a supposed SNES game that was listed on a Chips and Bits advertisement from the May 1992 GamePro magazine issue. Supposedly it was a shooter game, but nothing else is known about it, not even if it was cancelled. Considering how little info there is, it's most likely that this may not even be officially licensed by Nintendo. Mario Slapshot. In 2024, images were leaked of an arcade table named Mario Slapshot. It is a hockey-themed, foosball-like game with a Super Mario theme, featuring molded figures of Super Mario characters as the players and a scoreboard mounted by 2 piranha plants. It is unknown if this was a rejected pitch or if the licensing was already secured. This could have potentially been a piece of marketing material for an upcoming Mario sports game themed around hockey, but who knows. Kuruma DS. Kuruma DS, which roughly translates to In the Car DS, is a Japan-exclusive Nintendo DS game released on July 9, 2012. It was developed by Denso 10 in collaboration with Nintendo, and involves partnerships with Toyota and Honda. The basic idea is that the DS becomes a tool to enhance car travel, for example giving tour guide information, playing local quizzes, letting users save memories on drives, etc. Kuruma DS is not a typical DS game you can just pop in and use anywhere though. It actually required specific GPS hardware in our car, specifically the Eclipse Smart Navi systems, that pairs with the DS via Bluetooth. Without that hardware, many of its core functions are unusable. So while physical copies of this game are still circulating online, it's hard to know what this game really contained because very few people have emulated it. Wet Dry World background image source. On March 1st, 2021, a user on Twitter named Charlie C. Nintendo found every image that makes up the background of the Mario 64 level Wet Dry World. Wii Sports You Win voice line. Many players of Wii Sports vividly remember the game's announcer saying "you win" or "you lose" at the end of a match, even hearing the voice's cadence in their heads. In fact, I kind of can too. This memory is so widespread that it became a notable example of the Mandela effect, where groups of people share a false but consistent recollection. On forums like Reddit, you'll find countless posts from people swearing they grew up hearing the victory line and feeling surprised when told it never existed. In reality, the original 2006 release of Wii Sports never featured the announcer speaking those words. While the announcer, voiced by Josh Millman, does call out things like game or hole-in-one, there is no audio clip of him saying "you win" or "you lose" when a match ends. Instead, the game simply displays the text on screen accompanied by fanfare and crowd noises. Players who have dug into the game's files or replayed matches confirm that such a voice line is not present anywhere in the code. Tentacle Assault. Half-Elf Tentacle Assault DS was an erotic video game not licensed for Nintendo DS, developed by Team DSX and distributed by the defunct R4 flashcard sales company Sun Crew Co. Ltd. It was going to be launched at the end of 2008 at the Comiket, a Japanese fair of some sorts. But its distribution was ultimately cancelled just before its opening. The plot of the game is currently unknown, and all we know is that it involved half-elf girls being put into these gruesome situations with monsters, most of which having long tentacles. These situations mostly revolved around rape and abuse. I don't want to go into more detail with what this game contained, considering it's extremely disturbing and would make any sane person pretty uncomfortable to talk about. Outside of very foot-trafficked stores in Japan, apparently pamphlets were handed out to promote the game. Currently, there is no known whereabouts of this game, considering the devs finally came to their senses and cancelled this thing before its release date came. Wii U Zapper. In their E3 2011 trailer for the Wii U, at around 1 minute 50 seconds in, there's a minigame being played by someone holding what looks like a version of the Wii Zapper peripheral but for the Wii U. It holds the Wii U gamepad, and it's being used as a sniper scope. The player aims it into a window and shoots at a Mii of Shigeru Miyamoto. Who knows if this is an actual game or just an animation, but what's more interesting is the actual Wii U Zapper peripheral itself. This thing never got released, but it actually seems like a pretty cool idea and could probably make shooter games feel pretty immersive. Green Wii. The Green Wii seen at E3 2005 wasn't actually a production model, but rather one of several non-final color mock-ups Nintendo showed while the console was still being referred to as the Nintendo Revolution. At that time, Nintendo displayed the system's shell in a variety of striking colors, including black, white, silver, red, and a bright, almost lime green, to gauge public reaction and emphasize that the new console was more stylish and more customizable than previous hardware. These cases were essentially empty prototypes or early shells and not functioning units, and the green version in particular never moved past that stage. When the Wii finally launched in 2006, it debuted only in white. Black and red would come later, but silver and green were never officially released.